This podcast is supported by listeners like you. We're grateful for your tax-deductible donation at newthoughtphilly.org or the link in the episode description.
A practical prayer is a prayer that works.
These discussions between Reverend Bill Marchioni and Carol Lawrence dive into the details of how it works and how to work it.
Reverend Bill is a New Thought minister and the author of Practical Prayer for Real Results.
Your new life begins with a new thought.
Carol Lawrence is on a spiritual quest, finding the New Thought teaching after decades on the pulpit in 3 different traditional denominations.
I've got some questions.
Together, they're exploring the philosophy and activities that come together from many of the world's religions to create the practical spirituality that is New Thought.
Welcome to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marchioni, and I'm looking forward to this.
You came up with the idea for a topic, which I think overlapped something that I was talking to one of my students about earlier in the week. So what you got?
Okay. So music has always had an integral space in my work, complementing it or whatever, mostly because it feeds me. But I was taking piano lessons from a young man many years ago, and he said, you have to be careful of the music that you're playing because there's subliminal messages in that music. And I thought, okay, all right, I've heard this before. Is this whatever? and then, then the devil gets in it, and the devil's putting subliminal stuff in the, and so I just put that out there because that's a part of the discussion or the thoughts that people have. So then fast forward, I'm always looking for the right music, and I couldn't find the right music, and people see that subliminal thing again. And then they told me about different kinds of beats that do different things. So I can go with that, but
okay,
the subliminal messages, like, why are we afraid of things? Doesn't that question or raise a question about the absolute power of God?
Yeah, well, as far as I'm concerned, nothing's going to raise a question about the absolute power of God because that's pretty much unquestioned. And there are some things that go on that fit under the umbrella of God's creation that don't necessarily serve us. And I will explain what it is that I mean. So, big picture, it's all God. Everything is that one infinite presence taking unique and individual form. And as we've said before, we're talking about, why do bad things happen to good people? It's because there are no bad people. Everybody is an expression of that, the infinite. Some of them behave much more politely, if you will, than others. Some people like to get along with other people. Some people like to fight with others. And it's not that any of that is less godlike than anything else. So all of these influences that can happen are the ways that we are expressing the infinite in our own way. And sometimes it's not helpful for other people. The thing that I was talking to one of my students about earlier this week was hypnosis. And she wanted to know about hypnosis and prayer and intentionality. And also, how does meditation fit into that? So, at the risk of not answering or addressing your topic at all to begin with, I'll talk about that for just a second. That because we use the gardening or agricultural metaphor about seed thoughts. So if we're planting seed thoughts and creating something and growing something from our thoughts, because our thoughts are the causative power in the universe. Meditation is when we're basically tending to the soil in the garden. Mm-hmm. So in our spiritual practice, we get quiet and we allow room for something to grow. And in gardening, we're going to pull out the weeds and the rocks and the dirt, and we're going to make sure that the fertilizer is in and that the soil is ready for the seed. That's what meditation is. Prayer, practical prayer, spiritual mind treatment, effective prayer, is when we plant a seed into that receptive, fertile soil that is then going to grow a plant corresponding to the seed. Hypnosis, my observation was, and I ran this past a noted hypnotist friend of mine, and he didn't disagree. He has more to add to it, but he didn't disagree. Hypnosis is when you invite somebody else to plant your seed in the soil. And that's what the hypnotist does. And a practitioner is also going to help plant your intended seed in the soil. The reason that I bring that all up is because what's growing in our lives is a result of everything that's planted in our garden, in the garden of our consciousness. And some of that can be the seeds that we've planted. Some of that can be weeds that are left over from the good old days. And it's possible for somebody to come and plant something in our garden that we didn't want. Mm-hmm. And that is one of the ways of explaining that is the subliminal influence that's coming along from music or from other suggestions or from just the undermining influences of other people. Somebody else can plant a seed in our soil, and if we let it grow, then it grows up in our experience. Did that loop around to something that was helpful at all?
It's looping around.
It's definitely looping around.
It's definitely looping around. Yeah, I think, okay, so by way of just a little background, right? All of my ministerial life, for the most part, the music has been a thorn in my flesh. God. And it just has.
Because you didn't like the music that the
it
church
just was not
pushing
working.
On you? Or?
No, it just doesn't. So you got to have good music to grow a church, period. I don't care what kind of music it is. It's got to be good. And if it's okay. So a lot of push, start your own church, start your own. And one of the things I would clearly say to Spirit, I don't know what's going on here, but if you don't send some good music here, it's not happening. If it just does not come, it ain't happening. And that was sort of my baseline. And fast forward, and I would always have different options of music, but there was always a problem. And, then this kind of music is not appropriate and blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, okay, there's threats, they say in the music, that's whatever. Here's what I do. I go back to what I believe about God. Now, you can say anything you want. You can explain it. I study religious philosophy, comparative religions, love it all. I believe what I believe. I can talk to you about it and go with you down the road. But at the end of the day, I believe what I believe because in crisis time, you call on what you believe. Fair enough?
Yep.
So I am not, this is, you said it was wooey. This might be wooey.
We'll see.
I know it's stuff out there. Okay. So there may be some people call them bad influences and so forth. But I go back to my seat and say, this is what I believe about God. I can proceed without fear that all of these subliminal craps and stuff that's out there. I'm not saying it's not. I'm saying I know where I'm going. I really have faith in this God, right? This God thing. Mm-hmm. You see me trying to dance around the way I'm saying this, but I have faith in the God that I believe in the way that I do, right? So I'm going forward with this. And I believe that if there is an influence out there that is not good for me or doesn't serve me, I'm going to get a nudge. That's just what I think. Mm-hmm. And so far, it was it has been that way. Very recently, there was a push to do some things. And I said, you know what? I can't find the right music. And if I don't, I just can't do this. And something just came out of the blue. And
The music just showed up?
It showed up. It showed up. Not to just showed up. It showed up with choices. And I'm like, okay. Because I did a Rumi thing back in September, and I used music, got in a little bit of trouble because it was supposed to be free of the copyright, whatever, and it wasn't. Right. Got a little trouble. So I said, okay, you see that? You see that? Okay, but fine. Now here it comes free from the composer. Now, the reason that this is interesting to me, because 2 days later, it came again from somebody else, completely different, their own music, very different music. I got more choices than I ever thought I'd have.
There you go.
Yeah. And this is like how many years later? It's just 35 plus the number of years that I've been retired. I mean, I've been retired, 6 years, something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Longer than that. So it took a long time. But I think it's about trust in God and spirit and all the, whatever whatever y'all got, whatever God looks like and the energies, you got to trust in the ultimate power and wisdom, right, of God. So, so the right music was coming my way, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I don't have to be scared of subliminal stuff.
Scared? No, you don't need to be scared of it. You be aware that it's possible for it to be there. It's possible, and you know that it's possible that the music that you think is perfect is not going to land perfectly on everybody. Mm-hmm. And that's just that's the nature of the universe. So as long as you're okay with that, like, okay, this is what I'm going, this is what it has showed up for me. So I'm going to use this and work with it because it's powerful for me. And then you do. And if you get new input that, the guy who composed that has this problem or this issue, and there's, something in there, or if you play the record backwards, you hear, some whatever.
But I'm not playing it backwards, right? That's what I used to think. Like, I'm not doing that.
And as long as we're aware that if it doesn't land on everybody in a favorable way, that we get to readjust. Okay, is there something there that I was not aware of previously? Do I want to make an adjustment? And it's not like it's something that's going to be bad. It's all love unfolding, even if the love that's unfolding is don't ever do that again.
I just, I have, there's so much out there to be afraid of if you are, inclined to do that. And I'm saying, like, you use your good common sense, right? You don't go in particular areas after dark and all that. I'm not talking about that. But, right. But when you set an intention and you're doing the best you can to line up everything with that intention.
Right.
I can't be afraid of things that you're afraid of. Do you know what I mean? I can't do that because it's just too much.
Right.
You'll never get started.
You can be sensitive to the thought that I might have an issue with it, but you don't need to do it for me.
And I hope it didn't sound like I wouldn't take advice, because I very well would. But it has to be balanced against, like, the power of God. And, let's imagine that I think I have a hedge around me. Let's say it like that. I have to move with the way that I think is correct, and recognizing that I don't have to move at all. Do you know what I mean? Yep. For many years, I didn't move on the music thing at all. And it really broke my heart not to, but I couldn't get it. I couldn't get a yes on it. So, and then all of a sudden the floodgates came open. I got a whole lot of yeses, and I'm thinking, we worry about too much,
Yeah, and the creative process where the infinite is creating, and it started by creating the universe and has been subdividing and creating stuff from the manifest universe. with the conservation of matter and energy. So it's all the same stuff that's been here since the very beginning of time. It's just rearranging and recomposing itself in different ways. And, those ways include you and me and all the things that we're involved in. So your basic premise is like when you want to look for the divinity in it, it's there. And sometimes it's really obvious, and sometimes it's not obvious at all. And sometimes we have to set the intention for the good to be revealed, for the next steps to be revealed, and then be patient, because it might not be happening on our time frame. It's, on an infinite time frame, which is like 14.2 billion years so far. So it might take longer than before lunch.
While you were talking, I was thinking about time. You just go. You got to let go of that as it's got to be.
We get to let go of that in as the alternative to we're going to try and control it, because we're not going to be in control of it. We can still be in eager anticipation of something happening. We don't have to just say, oh, well, if it happens tomorrow or if it happens 100 years from now, I'm fine with it. It's like we've set the intention for something good to come into being, and we'd really like it to be sooner rather than later. But by not being attached to when it happens or how it happens or the specifics of it, we have a lot more peace of mind and actually give the universe a lot more latitude to create something that we want, even if it's not the way that we thought of.
I agree 100%, because I'm putting the situation into the words that you're saying. And let's see, this is November. So back I was having all this music trouble in the summer. And I said, you know what? This is really slowing me up. So I'll do what I do without music. It's not been working. Maybe this is just not for me to do. Forget it. And I wasn't happy with that decision, but it seemed like the only smart thing to do, rather than to just keep pushing and struggling. And then bingo. So I'm thinking, I really probably wouldn't have gone after this particular music. One, because I'm just not familiar with it that much. I've heard of it. And then I said, well, okay, this is the right stuff. And I'm listening to it. And I said, I think I can work with that. And the funny thing was, I said, Spirit, this is really cool. I'm really grateful for this. Now, that music that I used before that I absolutely love and got in trouble with, that I thought was, like out there. Yeah, it'd be nice if you could throw one of those my way at some point. And it really, you know what? It really wasn't 48 hours before it came. A couple of them. And I thought, all right, this is really cool. So the fear and frustration is like, it is not necessary. It happens. I think it's natural. But we could save ourselves a little time, a little frustration. Do you know what I mean? Because
absolutely,
it's going to happen at the right time. Except I have no notice when that's going to happen. I don't.
Right, and the letting go happened when you said, "All right, I'm going to do it without the music," and then the music showed up, and then you noticed that then that was the universe responding and reminding you, "Oh, well, anything is possible," and you said, "Well, if anything's possible, can I have it this way, please?"
Yes.
and that came around as well. So, and also not on your schedule, although it showed up much more quickly than than you would have normally expected. But it wasn't like you dialed up Amazon and ordered it.
Not even. I wonder, when I look back though on all the music that I thought was good and people said wasn't good, it was just too much controversy to me that was mixed in it. Too many opinions, too much fussing going on about it, and maybe too much wrapped up in the necessity of it having to be a certain way, that nothing happened. Is that possible?
Well, something happened, but it was what happened was no progress.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's take a break, and then we will continue the discussion about the subliminal ways that things happen.
Learn to put practical prayer to work in your life. The steps are simple to learn, and let you begin to get real results to create the life of your dreams immediately. Reverend Bill Marchione's widely acclaimed book, Practical Prayer for Real Results, gives you a clear summary of the New Thought principles behind practical prayer and the series of easy-to-understand steps found in the most effective prayers from religions and spiritual practices all over the world and throughout history. Practical prayer is not a replacement for your religion or practice. It's a technique to make the work you do in consciousness even more effective. The book includes 40 prayers on various topics that you can adapt as needed and use as your own. Practical Prayer for Real Results is available in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook on Amazon or at b-the-light.com. That's b-the-light.com.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marchione, and we're having a woo-woo conversation.
A woo-woo conversation. We're talking about music. And you started out with the notion of subliminal things, which are seeds that get planted in the soil of our consciousness without us noticing, without us being specifically aware of that. And sometimes we do it intentionally, and sometimes it gets done unto us. And some of that is the subliminal music. Like the rage for the last 5 or 10 years has been binaural beats, where you listen to meditative music in headphones and they play at slightly different frequencies in both ears. And that supposedly resonates with various parts of our brain waves, brain chemistry, electrical, whatever, and can bring about a state of enhanced fill in the blank. And there's some science to that. There's some science about, taking the theta brain waves or whatever it is and getting something to resonate with that. And the people have empirically found that it makes them feel more peaceful or more alert or sleepy or whatever. So in that sense, fine. That's great. That's using the sounds that you're not necessarily aware of to achieve something that's going to be important. Subliminal messages in music, is there a way for somebody who's composing or creating a piece of music to put a message in there that's not obvious to the listener? Sure, that's been going on, all the time. Minor chords can feel eerie when you listen to them. The friend of mine composes music for theatrical movies, and there are conventions about this is something that makes you feel happy and spring-like, and this is the stuff that makes you feel a little introspective, and these are the ways that you construct an underscore so that it feels threatening or spooky or whatever. And it's definitely possible to do that with music. It's possible to do that with conversation as well. Yeah. Dog whistles and subtexts of the things that people are saying. I'm saying one thing, but I'm meaning something different. And the people who are paying attention and know what I'm talking about can hear the message, even though it's not the part that I'm saying out loud for everybody. So that stuff is going on all the time. And as you have noticed, when you set the intention for the music, for the sound, for the conversation to be something that's wholesome and uplifting, you tend to attract more of that into your experience. And we all do. It shows up more and more. The messages that aren't working for us show up less and less. Interesting experiments done by Matsuo Emoto. And you might be familiar with him. He's the guy who takes water crystals and looks at them under an electron microscope. And the shape and the patterns of the water crystals are spectacular. And, you take water from different places and it looks different. Polluted water looks disorganized and chaotic. And then he takes pure water and he exposes it to messages, either music or by writing a phrase on the bottle. And it changes the chemical or the structure of the water. And we're mostly water. So it is obvious from those experiments that it's possible to have an influence on the structure of our bodies based on the sound or the frequencies or the messages that are coming in, whether we're aware of them or not. Because I'm pretty sure a bottle of water is not aware of what's going on, even though it's getting influenced.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. But I think it, as you were speaking, I was like going with you on the conversation, and I said, okay, it's been happening forever. There's always stuff happening that we don't know about in the music, and just always stuff just going on. And so you have to me, you got to find a way to be grounded in order to function without fear and being clumsy about what you're doing, because this is your life. And whether you're coming back and what that looks like is another discussion. But going forward each day is kind of like your responsibility to do it the best way you can. And all of these other things, yeah, they may be real or not real, but I'm not at the mercy of them.
Right.
They can get over my head. Of course. I don't know everything. I tell my kids I know everything, but I really don't.
Your kids still believe you.
And they still believe me. Yeah. Good. Yeah. But I don't, but I'm very intentional. I'm just intentional. And it's hard for me to imagine being intentional and vulnerable at the same time. Does that make sense? Or maybe not vulnerable is not word. I'm intentional and aware, but I'm following the intention.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting that you brought up vulnerable, because it's actually a good thing is to be vulnerable, because otherwise if we're trying to not be vulnerable, then we're guarding or protecting or shielding or otherwise obstructing whatever it is that's going on in the world around us. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of the idea of, when the strong wind is coming, you can batten down the hatches and close the doors, or you can open all the windows and let the breeze blow through. Mm-hmm. And, one of them is about protecting and the other one is about opening. And they both work. And they leave us in a different state of experience on how we're engaging with the world. So do we need to protect ourselves from evil influences? No, we can be aware of the evil influences, let them go by. Mm-hmm. The baseball player doesn't swing at every pitch, and we don't have to either. We can let the ones that aren't working for us go right past, and it doesn't have to influence us.
Yeah. I'm right now, in conversation with Emmett Fox on, and how to me, if you set your intention and your faith and all of that, it goes, you decide how that's going to work. And letting go or staying focused, I would say, is really important, because there's a lot of chatter out there in the world and you could get caught up in it. But to me, being intentional is saying, yeah, there's a lot of crap going on, but this is how I'm going to navigate through it. This is how I'm taking me through it. Now, I may get, 2 or 3 months down the road and tweak it, but it's not going to be fear-based. All this is going on in the world, and this is what's going to happen from all of that. I don't know that. I don't know that. Things change, right? So, yeah. So, I just, I'm trusting the universe is in order. It's been in order for a while, I think. Just, I'll stop there. I'll leave it there.
Okay.
It's been in order for a while.
Yeah. And you have reminded me of one of my favorite pithy sayings, which is innovate, evaluate, iterate, which means you come up with an idea and you set about whatever that new idea is. You innovate. And then you evaluate, all right, this is what I had in mind. Let's take a look at how it's actually working. And if it's working well, then you keep on doing it. And if not, you iterate, you come up with the revised version. And that's exactly what you're talking about. It doesn't need to be the answer forever. It gets to be the answer for now.
Yeah.
You set the intention, you let something start to grow. You say, do I really want to have watermelons growing in this little tiny garden? Mm-hmm. Or is it going to be better for strawberries because there's room for more of them? Mm-hmm. And then you make a different decision. You change your path. And hopefully eventually the watermelons will stop growing.
I think if it's, excuse me, this might be veering off, but we do that. I think if it's the right thing to happen, you just walk with it. And it probably isn't going to be exactly the way you thought it should go every step of the way. But the end game is pretty important to me. I'm directed by, this is what I want it to be. And I get energy by what I want it to be. Now, it may change. It may change, but it will change because the vision has changed, or I see something that's not good, but it's not because of all of the chatter around saying the whole, world is threatened and it's going to fall apart, because I don't think it is. I just don't think so.
Yeah. Right. We're partners with the infinite. It's a co-creative process. So it's something that we're involved in. It's not something that we're doing on our own. And it's not something that we're completely disconnected from. So we get to be partners. And actually, let's do another quick break. And then we're going to do that prayer on inspiration and innovation. It's Reverend Bill letting you know that the Practical Prayer for Real Results class is now available on demand. That's right, you can take it at your own pace, anytime you want. All of the information is at bethelight.com. That's b-the-light.com. You know where to find that stuff. The class is 5 lessons, broken down into 18 modules, and you can take them at whatever pace is comfortable for you. As you work through the process, it starts out with the theory, goes into the practice, there are experiential activities and exercises, and at the end of the program, you will wind up with an understanding of how practical prayer works, and a practical prayer for yourself that will work to create transformation in your life. And as you know, it works for everything. Take a look at the class online at bethelight.com. There's a sample lesson so you can see how the class is going to work for you, and then dive in. The great news is it's on sale now. You can register and save $20 off of the regular price. I'm looking forward to seeing you in class.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marcioni.
Fascinating conversation about subliminal influences and how we are partnering with the infinite to create that next experience in life.
I like the co-creative idea. And, I make sure that I'm real clear about that, right? Because I do a lot of talking to God, and telling God what to do. I've got an idea, just in case you don't, let me suggest this to you. But but to me, it's all in fun, understanding that my partner has infinite intelligence and I don't. I have access to it. It's available. But, some things I might read it wrong based on what I want. So the senior partner, I suppose, will exercise the right to veto.
Yeah, and the senior partner has infinite resource, infinite intelligence, and infinite patience. So if we want something and it's just not the right time for it, it doesn't happen until the time is right. And sometimes the idea isn't fully formed, in which case it doesn't happen for a while and then eventually comes back around. So there's a lot of possibilities. And it's so arrogant for us to think that when we come up with a brand new idea that that's it. I have now discovered the secret of the universe and everybody else has to get in line because this is it. And, it's possible that that's going to happen. But, if I get the inspiration that this is it, that this is the final answer, and then I wait, sometimes it becomes apparent to me that that wasn't the final answer. And if the same answer keeps coming up again and again and again for me, then it's probably going to be true. If it was a good idea yesterday, it'll still seem like a good idea at the end of the week.
Mm-hmm.
So we get to be patient and present with what's going on.
Yeah. We got to do one on patience one day. And everybody's, I don't know how you post it. Do you post the title of the talk? Mm-hmm. If you put that in there, nobody's going to want to listen. But it's
that's actually, I will never, when somebody comes to me and says, can you pray for me to have patience? It's like, nope, no. I'm not going to do that.
No.
Because the only way that you know that you have patience is that God puts you at the end of a very long line and you don't kill somebody. Not going to pray for somebody to learn forgiveness either. But those are two completely different episodes. Let us do a prayer now. And this is going to be a fun, juicy one. It's about creating that newness in our lives. This prayer is about taking that inspiration for something that could be showing up brand new and wonderful and joyous and uplifting and successful and happy and prosperous and loving and connected and creative and healthy and vibrant and good. Whatever adjectives we want to use, that's about inviting that into our lives, to take that inspiration and put some legs on it, to turn away from the specifics, the condition, to let go of the insistence that it happen right now, and to go into that quiet space, to become aware of that infinite creative power, that one divine presence, that one love that we call spirit, God, nature, the Big Bang, the source. Whatever it is that is creating all of this, that has created everything, that continues to create, that same divine creative power has created each of us. And it continues to create with us as a partner. So as that inspiring new idea comes to mind, as we form it and allow it to be revealed, there's a new possibility that's born. And by inviting that infinite creative power to reveal that next idea, that next experience, that next opportunity for us, we get to participate in bringing it into life. And we take the steps, and we're involved in that creative process. And then we get to evaluate, is this working as I had desired? Is this making me and everybody else involved feel the sort of uplift that we had in mind? Is there new information that has shown up as a result of this new experience that lets us go back and revise that initial idea? Is there further inspiration possible? And we get to adjust. We get to fine-tune. We get to partner with the infinite in creating something new and wonderful. And that process continues. It's not a one and done. It's not an intention, a prayer, and finished. We get to continue fine-tuning, adjusting, and allowing the infinite to bring more and more and more of that good into our experience. And being an infinite creative power, it has infinite resource, infinite possibility, and infinite potential to create newness and more newness. So that's the invitation for each of us to participate in that process, to be the innovators, to also be the stewards of that innovation, to allow that newness to unfold in ways that are good and better still. And I'm grateful for the wonderful way that the law is responding. I'm grateful for the ideas that are even now coming to mind. I'm grateful for the willingness of each one within the sound of my voice to participate in the process, to understand when tweaks or adjustments are warranted, and to take those steps and be participants in creating the new and the wonderful. And so with gratitude for all of the good that's already unfolding and continues to do so, I speak this word and I release it into that same creative law that creates everything, that has created everything. And I know it is now creating this. This good is underway now. And so I let it be. And so it is.
The Practical Prayer Podcast with Reverend Bill Marcioni and Carol Lawrence is a production of BeTheLight.com.
be-the-light.com,
where you can find more information about practical prayer for real results.
Our theme is by Music of Wisdom. You can learn about the spiritual community of New Thought Philadelphia with daily guided meditations,
Weekly celebrations of spirit,
and Reverend Bill's classes in practical spirituality
at newthoughtphilly.org.
This podcast is supported by listeners like you. We're grateful for your tax-deductible donation at newthoughtphilly.org or the link in the episode description.